Imagine an entire world hidden from the naked eye, a universe of creatures so tiny they could go unnoticed on a single grain of sand. Until the late 16th century, nobody knew it existed. But everything changed when two Dutch craftsmen created an object that revealed the invisible, the microscope. Picture yourself in the bustling Netherlands of 1590. The streets are alive with merchants, sailors returning from exotic voyages, and artisans perfecting their crafts. Among them were two remarkably skilled lens makers, a father and son duo named Hans and Zacharias Janssen. In their small workshop crowded with glass, metal tools, and flickering candlelight, they made a discovery that would revolutionize science forever. The Janssens weren't university scholars or wealthy nobility. They were craftsmen with skilled hands and curious minds. While experimenting with different combinations of lenses, they noticed something extraordinary. When two carefully shaped glass lenses were placed at precise distances within a tube, tiny objects appeared dramatically larger. What began as a simple observation would eventually unlock an entirely new dimension of reality. What's truly fascinating is that their invention almost vanished into historical obscurity. For years, their microscope remained little more than a curious novelty. The Janssens never fully realized the profound implications of what they had created, a key that would eventually unlock the mysteries of cells, bacteria, and the very foundation of life itself. Think about it. For all of human history until that moment, our understanding of the world had been limited to what our eyes could see. Kings, philosophers, and peasants alike, none had ever witnessed the intricate dance of microorganisms in a drop of pond water or the complex structures within a simple leaf. An invisible realm teeming with life had existed alongside humanity since the beginning of time, yet remained completely unknown. But how exactly did this invention transform our understanding of life? And why did it nearly become lost to history? The answers reveal not just a scientific breakthrough, but a fundamental shift in how humans perceive reality itself. If you love science and want to unravel the secrets of the invisible world, like this video, subscribe to the Modern Age Chronicles channel, and don't miss a single episode. What made the Janssens' discovery so remarkable was that they weren't scientists in ivory towers or scholars funded by wealthy patrons. Hans and Zacharias were craftsmen, skilled artisans who worked with their hands daily, grinding and polishing glass to perfection. In the late 16th century, lens making was a specialized trade that required immense patience and precision. These two Dutch masters had spent years perfecting the art of creating spectacles for the wealthy and aging merchants of Holland. The story goes that during one particularly creative experiment, they placed two carefully crafted lenses within a simple tube, one at each end. When they peered through this arrangement, something magical happened. Objects viewed through this contraption appeared up to 9 times larger than when seen with the naked eye. Imagine their astonishment when a tiny insect suddenly appeared as large as a mouse, revealing intricate details never before witnessed by human eyes. At first, their invention was treated as little more than an amusing novelty. The wealthy would purchase these curious tubes to entertain guests at parties, marveling at the magnified textures of fabric or the surprising details visible in commonplace objects. The Janssens themselves likely didn't grasp the full significance of what they had created. How could they? Nobody yet understood that they had just opened a portal to an entirely new dimension of reality. What's fascinating is that the very first microscope looked nothing like the sleek instruments we use today. It was roughly the size of a wine bottle, constructed from brass or sometimes gilt leather, with the lenses mounted within a cylindrical tube. Since electric lighting was centuries away, these early microscopists relied entirely on reflected sunlight to illuminate their specimens. They would position their instruments near windows during daylight hours, carefully angling them to catch the sunbeams just right. On cloudy days in the Netherlands, observation became nearly impossible. The true revolution came when someone, and historical records are frustratingly unclear exactly who deserves this credit, decided to examine something so ordinary yet so profound, a simple drop of water. That seemingly insignificant moment would change science forever. For the first time in human history, someone witnessed the bustling metropolis of microorganisms that exists in even the clearest water. Think about this moment. For thousands of years, humans had been drinking, bathing in, and living alongside water without any awareness of the teeming life forms it contained. Kings and peasants alike had no concept of the microscopic world influencing their daily lives. With one look through a tube of cleverly arranged glass, humanity's understanding of the world was forever transformed. The lens revolution had begun, and there was no turning back. Nearly a century after the Janssen's initial invention, an unlikely figure stepped onto the scientific stage. Antonie van Leeuwenhoek wasn't born into academic privilege. He was a Dutch cloth merchant with no formal scientific training. What he did have was incredible patience, remarkable curiosity, and extraordinarily skilled hands. Working alone in his shop in Delft during the mid-17th century, van Leeuwenhoek taught himself to create lenses of unprecedented quality. He would heat glass rods until they melted, then carefully pull and shape them into tiny spheres smaller than a pinhead. These miniature lenses achieved magnification powers up to 270 times, far beyond anything seen before. When van Leeuwenhoek pointed his improved microscope at a drop of lake water in 1676, what he saw left him utterly astonished. The water, which appeared perfectly clear to the naked eye, was teeming with thousands of tiny creatures. They darted about, twisted, and contorted in what seemed like a chaotic underwater ballet. In his detailed letters to the Royal Society of London, he described these as animalcules, tiny living animals moving with apparent purpose through the liquid. The news spread through Europe like wildfire, igniting both wonder and horror. Imagine learning that everything you drink, every pool of water, even the raindrops falling from heaven harbored invisible living creatures. For a society deeply entrenched in religious explanations of the natural world, this discovery was profoundly unsettling. The church authorities were among the first to express alarm. If God had created all living things visible to Adam in the Garden of Eden, how could these creatures exist? Some religious leaders suggested these animalcules might actually be tiny demons, evidence of Satan's corruption of God's creation. They worried that van Leeuwenhoek had opened a doorway to a realm better left unexplored. Medical doctors of the era were equally disturbed, but for different reasons. Their practices were based on ancient theories of bodily humors and imbalances. The suggestion that invisible creatures might exist inside the human body challenged everything they thought they understood about health and disease. Many prestigious physicians outright rejected van Leeuwenhoek's findings, claiming his instruments must be creating illusions, or that his eyes were deceiving him. What makes this story even more remarkable is that van Leeuwenhoek kept his lens-making techniques completely secret. He created over 500 different microscopes during his lifetime, but never revealed exactly how he crafted his superior lenses. He would send his observations and drawings to the Royal Society, but refused to share his methods. When prominent visitors came to see his microscopes, he would only show them pre-prepared specimens, never allowing them to look at how the instruments were constructed. Despite the controversy and resistance, van Leeuwenhoek's discoveries couldn't be ignored forever. The evidence was too compelling, the implications too profound. The invisible world existed, whether people accepted it or not. And slowly, reluctantly, European thought began to shift. The microscope had revealed a universal truth. Our senses alone cannot perceive all of reality. What other wonders might be waiting beyond the limits of human perception? Hey, did you know that the first microscopes were actually called curious glasses? If you're enjoying this journey through scientific history, hit that like button and let us know in the comments, what would your reaction have been if you were the first person to see microbes back in the 17th century? Would you have been filled with wonder, terror, or perhaps a bit of both? Despite the initial fear and skepticism, truth has a remarkable way of persisting. For nearly 2 centuries after van Leeuwenhoek's discoveries, the microscopic world remained largely a scientific curiosity, fascinating to naturalists but disconnected from practical medicine. Doctors continued treating patients as they had for generations, completely unaware that invisible organisms were often the true culprits behind suffering and death. Then came a turning point in the mid-19th century, when a French chemist named Louis Pasteur changed medicine forever. Pasteur wasn't originally interested in disease at all. He was trying to solve a problem for wine producers whose products kept spoiling mysteriously. Using improved microscopes, Pasteur discovered tiny microorganisms were contaminating the wine. This seemingly simple observation led to a revolutionary idea. What if these same invisible creatures could invade the human body and cause illness? The notion was so radical that it faced fierce opposition from the medical establishment. In the elegant lecture halls of Europe's most prestigious universities, professors ridiculed what became known as the germ theory of disease. How could something so small possibly defeat the human body? The very idea seemed absurd to many learned physicians. But Pasteur was extraordinarily persistent. In one famous demonstration in 1864, he arranged flasks of broth in different conditions, some exposed to air, others sealed or filtered. Using his microscope, he showed conclusively that microorganisms came from other microorganisms, not from spontaneous generation, as many believed. The implications were staggering. If germs caused disease, then preventing their spread could prevent illness itself. While Pasteur was making these breakthroughs in France, a country doctor in England named Joseph Lister was facing a grim reality. As a surgeon in Glasgow, he watched in horror as patient after patient died from infections following even minor operations. Reading about Pasteur's work, Lister had a brilliant insight. If invisible germs in the air caused food to spoil, perhaps they also infected surgical wounds. In 1865, Lister began using carbolic acid to sterilize surgical instruments, his hands, and even spray the operating room air. The results were immediate and dramatic. Before his methods, nearly half of amputation patients died from infection. Using his antiseptic techniques, the mortality rate dropped to 15%, all because someone looked through a microscope and made the connection between invisible life and human suffering. Here's something fascinating. Before germ theory, doctors would often go straight from performing autopsies to delivering babies without washing their hands. They had no idea they were carrying deadly bacteria from corpse to mother. When Ignaz Semmelweis suggested hand-washing in the 1840s, he was ridiculed and ultimately committed to an asylum, where he ironically died of an infection. The microscope eventually proved he had been right all along. The story of the microscope's impact doesn't end with Pasteur and Lister. In the late 19th century, a country doctor named Robert Koch used microscopes to identify the specific bacteria responsible for anthrax, tuberculosis, and cholera, diseases that had devastated humanity for centuries. His meticulous work established the criteria still used today to connect specific microorganisms to specific diseases. Without the microscope, we would have no antibiotics. When Alexander Fleming noticed in 1928 that a mold contaminating his bacterial cultures was killing the bacteria, he needed his microscope to confirm what was happening. That observation led to the discovery of penicillin, which has saved countless millions of lives. Vaccines, organ transplants, cancer treatments, genetic engineering, none of these would exist without our ability to see and understand the microscopic world. The modern science of cell biology emerged entirely because of what microscopes revealed about the fundamental building blocks of all living things. Think about this remarkable journey, from two Dutch lens makers crafting a curious tube, to Van Leeuwenhoek's secretly ground lenses revealing little animals, to Pasteur and Koch connecting these creatures to disease, and finally to today's electron microscopes showing us the very atoms that make up life itself. The microscope didn't just change science, it transformed our understanding of life itself and saved countless millions of lives in the process. The microscope revealed a profound truth that continues to shape our understanding of the world. Sometimes the greatest mysteries exist in the smallest spaces. What began as a simple arrangement of glass lenses in 16th century Holland has evolved into one of humanity's most transformative tools. The journey from those early curious glasses to today's powerful instruments spans more than 4 centuries, yet in many ways, we're still just beginning to see. Think about this remarkable progression. The earliest microscopes magnified objects about 9 times. Today's electron microscopes can magnify objects more than 10 million times. We've gone from barely glimpsing the fuzzy outlines of cells to photographing individual atoms, the very building blocks of reality itself. The resolution of our vision has improved more than 1,000,000-fold since those first Dutch lens makers peered through their tubes. Modern science continues to push these boundaries even further. In 2017, researchers developed a technique called cryo-electron microscopy that won the Nobel Prize in chemistry. This method freezes molecules in place, allowing scientists to capture 3-dimensional images of proteins, viruses, and cellular machinery with unprecedented clarity. We're now witnessing biochemical processes that have been occurring in every living thing since life began, yet remained invisible until now. Here's something truly mind-bending to consider. For every step we take toward the microscopic, we discover that reality extends even deeper. When van Leeuwenhoek saw bacteria for the first time, he thought he'd reached the limits of smallness. But inside those bacteria are protein molecules. Inside those molecules are atoms. Inside atoms are subatomic particles. And beyond those are quarks and perhaps string-like vibrations of energy that might be the fundamental fabric of the universe itself. Each layer of reality we uncover seems to reveal yet another hidden beneath it. What's particularly fascinating is how the microscope continues to reveal unexpected connections. Scientists recently discovered that the human brain contains networks of neurons that resemble the vast cosmic web of galaxies in structure. The patterns of our smallest cellular connections mirror the largest structures in the universe, as if the same mathematical principles organize reality at every scale. Perhaps the most important lesson the microscope teaches us is humility. For thousands of years, humans believed what we could see was all there was to see. We were wrong. What other aspects of reality might still lie beyond our perception? What other universes of discovery are waiting just beyond the limits of our current technology? Today's children will witness revolutions in microscopy we can hardly imagine. They might observe quantum processes unfold in real time, watch consciousness emerge from neural networks, or discover entirely new forms of life in environments we currently consider sterile. The journey that began with 2 pieces of glass in a simple tube continues to this day with no end in sight. If you enjoyed this video about one of science's most transformative inventions, please share it with someone who loves science as much as you do. Subscribe to Modern Age Chronicles for more stories that changed our world. Until next time. And remember, there's always more to see than meets the eye.